Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints. Just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Continuing our run through of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Right now we're up to the season finale, season 6's finale. It's called Tears of the Prophets. Aired on June 17th, 1998. It was written by Ira Steven Behr and Hans Beimler, directed by Alan Croker. In this episode, Sisko leads an invasion of Cardassian territory, ignoring a warning from the Prophets, with fatal consequences for a member of the DS9 crew. Season finale. We're joined by Clay. Clay, how are you? Fresh off me. I guess I wanted to open this fresh off me spoiling this episode for you last episode, just because I felt like either you knew or we were heading to a point where I needed to discuss. But I do want you to know that I did feel bad, and I thought about it for a little bit about whether or not I should have done that. However, I was like a 12-year-old girl with a giddy secret that I just had to let out, and it came out like it did.
Well, you didn't tell me that it was via Pah-Wraith shenanigans, which I'm glad you didn't, because that was silly. I don't know who gets the award for silliest death, if it's Dax or Tasha Yar, because I feel like they're both, at least this one seems to have a point and was actually structured fairly well, instead of just getting blasted and then forgot about.
Yeah. It's the opposite of what Roddenberry tried to do with Tasha Yar, which was his sort of terrible idea that characters on TV shows should just have realistic deaths, which is not particularly a very narratively strong way to do a character off, I guess.
I call shenanigans on that, because no one on Star Trek TNG ever died of like heart disease.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Everyone's healthy is at healthy levels, I guess, as far as that goes. Yeah. Let's take a break. We're going to get into it. We're going to discuss Tears of the Prophets right after this.
Well, isn't anyone going to welcome me home?
Heroes get welcomed home, Dukat, not failures. Or have you forgotten that under your leadership, the Dominion nearly lost this war?
As I recall, Weyoun, you were standing right by my side, agreeing with every decision I made.
If you're here because of what happened to your daughter...
Damar, you disappoint me. I would have thought you, of all people, would be glad to see your old mentor. I don't hold you responsible for Ziel's death. You may have fired the phaser, but it was Benjamin Sisko who forced your hand. And that's why I'm here. The time has come for me to take my revenge against the good captain.
Do you want to start with Dax? Is there a better place to start with than Dax? Because I guess this episode is kind of all about killing off Dax, which I think is its weakest link, really.
Yeah.
I guess that's as good a place as any to start, because otherwise this is just a fairly stock standard DS9 season ender, where it has a big Dominion thing that they deal with. It has a repercussion that sort of shuffles the game before they start up new seasons. So they've done something to put the writers in a corner a little bit. They're going to have to do something new in the next season. Mm-hmm. And really what they did was the death of Jadzia Dax here, which is I'm conflicted about. I don't know. Like, it's tough to discuss this episode without the kind of just behind the scenes of like wondering why they couldn't keep her around, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know who's to blame. I'm not particularly interested in that, or if there is any blame, or if people just wanted to go their separate ways. But if a character had to die, Dax is the best one to do it, right?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Unless you wanted to kill Rom, which I would be fine with. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you got to kill one of them. My problem with it is, and my reference to Tasha is only like kind of, half not serious, because the thing that really bothered me about this was that Sisko at the end feels like he could have averted this somehow, but it only happens by complete coincidence. Like, there's no...
In terms of what?
It's not like,
what's the coincidence?
And just that she happened to be in the temple when Dukat managed to transport onto the temple without anybody knowing it was happening.
Yes.
Through whatever, I don't know what security systems they have there, but I feel like they should have been able to sense that was happening.
Yep.
Or something.
I think the transporter,
is there a ship?
The transporter that he beams in on, I think, is the Dominion transporter look. So I think they must have a ship out there, although the Dominion don't have cloaking devices, so I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Yeah.
So there should be a ship or something, you would think. And it's not like Dax gets killed trying to thwart Dukat from doing something that Sisko could have prevented from happening. Or,
exactly.
Or like it's not like there was a shortage of manpower on Deep Space Nine that allowed Dukat to get the jump on people or anything. He just literally beams in, blasts her with some Dragon Ball rays, and vomits into a crystal. And then he disappears.
Yeah.
And we don't even really, I mean, I guess he blows up the wormhole. But still, I mean, it's not super, it's very incidental, and it doesn't, I feel like they didn't really give her the death she probably should have had.
No.
It feels like a more thoughtful version of the Tasha Yar death, in that it is still feels like a complete just casualty of war type thing, but it still doesn't ring true for a character who has been on the show for 6 years.
The most surprising thing to me, right? Like, I completely, the problem to me about this being a death episode, there's two things that go wrong with it. The first one is that all of the events seem structured to kill her.
Sure.
Like all of the decisions that are made, where she is, for whatever reason, the only crew member who's left behind on the station when they all go off.
Bashir's there too.
Because Bashir needs to tell them that she's dead. Like Bashir has to stay to facilitate her death. Mm-hmm. And so all of those decisions just feel like it's really only designed that this is going to happen, that they have to kill her off. And the thing is that, because I told you last week when I spoiled it for you, is that she was off auditioning. They knew that she was leaving. Her entire sixth season was a contract negotiation that they knew was going poorly, and that she probably wasn't going to come back. Yeah. So it's a little bit less forgivable to me that they couldn't set it up more effectively as to what was going to happen. And I think that's a big problem with the writing. And the other aspect of it is, I think that if you have a character who's been on your show, and I would have preferred Jadzia Dax remain on the show all 7 seasons at this point. Like, the 6th season going into your last season feels like it's like, come on, you can't get one more season out of this person.
Sure.
I would have been fine killing her off a little bit earlier. The thing is that getting her to this point, if she's going to die, I feel the episode should pay respects to her, and she should die early in the episode, as opposed to the very last moment of it, where you're never going to see her again.
Yeah, that's tough.
You think the death needs to be the twist or something?
Yeah, I mean, what do you do for the rest of the episode? Do you just have people like talk about her or something?
No, because
then that becomes the focus of the episode, is that Dax has been killed, unless that's what you want.
Well, this is maybe a little bit of me knowing, but like, they're going to kick off next season with everyone everyone kind of mimics the Sisko role, in that they're in different places with it.
Sure.
So I think you can kickstart that in this episode. And as not just Sisko leaves the station, but everything else that happens also is mentioned at that point, and you are aware going into the season break that people are going to be in different places in their lives next year. That would have been okay. Like, I don't like the way that she died. Like, I don't like the Pah-Wraith thing. I don't like Dukat. Dukat's alliance with the Dominion feels like it's the wrong kind of thing for this point at this show, where I like the Dominion, like Damar and Weyoun talking to each other, because it always felt like it was a really political situation, and Dukat's sort of religious zealotry coming into it feels like he has, for whatever reason, usurped control from them somehow, when they shouldn't give him that amount of control, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, as soon as he walks in there and is like, I just need to get a Bajoran religious artifact, and then we will have the power. He should have been cut off mid-sentence and immediately thrown in prison.
Yes.
Been like, get this fucking guy out of here.
And they mentioned at the start, they're like, the last time we saw you, you fucked up. So why should we believe anything that you're talking about here? It's a strange
I was on
situation.
Team Wei-Yun for this one when Dukat comes in and he's like, oh, the prophets, blah, blah, blah. And Wei-Yun's like, this sounds dumb. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you, Wei-Yun.
Wei-Yun, one of my favorite characters.
I did really like, similarly in that scene, I really did like when Wei-Yun calls bullshit on the warp aliens, the wormhole aliens being gods.
Yes.
And then his buddy there's like, well, don't you think the founders are gods? And he's like, well, obviously that's different.
Yes.
I like that.
Very much a true to life religious argument, I think there. Yes. The Egyptian gods are baloney. My God is the true God. That's Damar too, who's going to become important.
Damar.
Damar.
He was the guy with the goatee and Color Me Bad, right?
I don't recall. What
it just sounds like an R&B guy name.
What did you? I guess we can just continue going down. Like what do you feel about losing Jadzia at this point? Like it does make sense that the Dax symbiont could live on as a different character, and you would have the ability to switch things up, and you can go in a different direction with it depending on who the symbiont is bonded with. I would have rather have kept her around for another season. It feels like a weirdly personal chink in the armor or something to lose a character in the 7th season. I don't know why. That's more of like a personal thing than anything. But if you remember in TNG, they had that Second Chances episode where Tom Riker made his appearance and they were considering killing off Will Riker and having him be replaced. Sure. As much as a cool idea as that is, I still like to go back and look at it and be glad that they didn't do that, because I would just like to finish out the series with the people that I know.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think, excuse me. I think it's one of those things where, yeah, realistically, if you're at war, then it would make sense that at least someone on the main cast would get taken out. Preferably not like this.
You didn't like this at all, or is there any kind of redemption to it for you?
I guess the actual mechanic of it I hated. I really didn't like it. I thought the scene, I actually thought it was the stuff on her deathbed and when she dies, and the stuff that Sisko does over her death tube there was actually really touching. I like that stuff a lot. Although I wish Dorn had put a little bit more stank on that Klingon death yell. That was not his best work, and I feel like that should have been the best one he's ever done.
I think the direction didn't do him any favors there either. Like, lingering on it doesn't make sense. I feel like it's one of those things you have to cut and keep the audio going over the next scene, kind of. It's not something you really want to focus on, because when you look at it, it looks a little bit ridiculous. But I also agree that he did not particularly scream very effectively in it. Yeah.
It felt like they used like the rehearsal take or something, where they were just blocking
don't blow out your pipes on this one, Michael.
Yeah,
we'll
exactly.
do this later. Yeah.
It should have been Khan, the Khan yell from Wrath of Khan, but instead it was just like, all right, we're gonna go through this once, and then oh shit, we ran out of film. I guess we have to use the setup take.
Yeah. The Sisko speech, I agree, though, is good. The Sisko over her casket, I think, works, and I think him leaving at the end works. I'm
conflicted about it, though, because again, I don't think that there's any clear thing that Sisko not leaving would have changed.
Right.
Like
Dukat still would have beamed in.
Yeah, he still would have killed Dax. He still would have blown up the wormhole. So him staying and listening to the prophets wouldn't have changed anything. And I feel like the amount of guilt and like how despondent he feels over it, I wish it was tied to something like a direct decision that he made that actually has like stakes to it, instead of just, we asked him to leave, he didn't leave, and now this happened. Where it's like, I wish there was something he could point to be like, if I hadn't gone, if I hadn't left, if I had listened to the prophets, I could have stopped X.
I think the problem is that the prophets also caring about Dax doesn't make sense to me. The prophets only care about Bajor. So my solution to fix this is that Sisko calls away the fleet, and for whatever reason, you write in that Dax is on Bajor for this event, and she's at a temple on Bajor. and the Dominion attack Bajor as the fleet is gone and there's no one left to protect them. There's like a sneak attack or something like that. And she is killed in this attack. If not by maybe she can still be killed by Dukat, but there's a ramification that Bajor also suffers because of what they've done from this. And at that point, I feel that the stakes are appropriate there because Sisko pulled the fleet away. He was the one that caused them to go after this other mission when the prophets were saying, you have to stay behind, something bad is going to happen. And it's a little bit grander scale than just Dax dying, but also Dax dies during it.
Well, I don't know if the prophets are specifically talking about Dax dying as much as they're talking about
the wormhole closing,
getting blown up. So I think you could do it. I mean, if they had just had Dukat do a raid on Deep Space Nine, where, you know, for whatever reason, the fleet was gone, so they managed to sneak in, and then there were fewer people there because everybody was off on the Defiant. So, you know, Dukat and like 5 Jem'Hadar just show up and just start killing people.
Right.
And while they're doing that, he's sneaking off to go, you know, Pah-Wraith himself. And, you know, Dax goes after him to try to stop him. And then, you know, and the Stranger blasts her and kills her and, you know, that kind of thing, where it's like there's something that actually happens because Sisko isn't there. I think going down a bit, I see what you're saying. I think that would probably be too much because then it would be like you'd have to get her down there. You know, I just think it would be a little too complicated.
Yeah, it's moving locations a little bit more than you absolutely have to.
Yeah. And I mean, also it takes, if you have Dukat do some larger scale attack on Deep Space Nine, it puts Odo and Kira back on the board, which they're not even fucking there for the end of the episode.
Right.
Like they just disappear after they decide that after Odo realizes that one fight doesn't break up. Oh God, I fucking hate this. Once he realizes that one fight doesn't break up a relationship, they just disappear. And, you know, he leaves, Sisko leaves the station to Kira and that's not what happens. Sisko leaves the
station
the
to
helm
Dax
to Kira. Yeah.
For some reason. Yeah.
He leaves the station to Dax. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Kira is on the Defiant.
Yep.
Is Odo also on the Defiant?
I don't know where Odo is, actually. We don't see him, do we? I would assume he's still on the station, but he could be on the Defiant.
Yeah, okay. So let's say he's on the station, right? Even better. Dukat shows up. The security team can't handle it because it's a bunch of Jem'Hadar dudes and Dukat who's blasting fireballs out of his eyes or some shit. I don't know. You know, so that way it's a direct assault. It has consequences in that, you know, lessening the defensive force of Deep Space Nine because everybody was off on this other thing.
Right.
Is a decision that Sisko makes.
They lose the orbs. They lose the tier.
Yeah, and you know Dax gets killed in the you know whatever.
Yep.
I forget the word I'm looking for, but you know what I
mean. I'd agree with that. I think that it's
more expensive and it's probably harder to shoot because I mean you're doing a space battle and also mirroring that with like an assault onto Deep Space Nine. I mean, it's not really any harder to shoot than anything else I've ever done, I guess.
I would lose the space battle. You know, like
I have some serious questions about that space battle.
It's one of those things where I feel no emotional connection to any Star Trek battle scene like that. It all just feels like it's like, here's a bunch of ships. There's a bunch of ships. We got to shoot this thing. Chief, figure out how to shoot that thing. We shot it. It's over. Everyone's happy. Yeah. There's really there's nothing interesting about it. And I think it distracts from the character work that Star Trek does better than that. And so I'd rather focus on that and just have the battle be a very small backdrop. It takes up a pretty good chunk of this episode, what they do with that. And they've got to have their fireworks going into the finale. But I would have rather have moved more of that time to the Dax storyline and sold that and built it up a little bit better. And I think that that's cheaper because you're not doing the CGI space battle. It probably takes less time. I would assume less money just to work with the actors you have on a set that you have and work something out that way.
Yeah, my big question about the space battle is how does the Defiant apparently have better shields than Romulan and Klingon warbirds, the Excelsior class, and the Galaxy class, because those ships were getting fucking wrecked.
It's built for battle. It's small. It can dodge the shots, and it's built for that stuff. Yeah.
Well, their shields need a massive overhaul because they were just driving ships. Do the shields only work against phasers and shit?
That's the implication.
So,
you can kamikaze
just,
a ship with shields up. Yeah.
With no problem. You could just drive a ship into another ship.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like they've used the shields to deflect asteroids and shit before.
Well, do I have to get nerdy here? The deflector dish deflects the asteroids and things like that, which is different from the shields, Clay. Let's get serious here. I like the kamikaze thing because it's unique to the Jem'Hadar that they do that, and that
I wish have they ever done it before?
The Odyssey that blows up in the Galaxy class starship when they first meet them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
still, it seemed kind of weird.
It's a trait that they do and that they're willing to die for it, and I appreciate it for that. The only thing that I really liked about the space battles is that we mentioned this in Pale Moonlight. I like DS9's Romulans. I think that they're good. Like they're really interesting and different from the Klingons and the humans, and I feel like they play them more as just angry Vulcans, which I think works really well, and it's good to see them back, and I like having them around. But the rest of the space battle stuff is just, CGI ships shooting at each other, and I don't really care for it.
Yeah, the Romulans are angry Vulcans, and the Vulcans are annoyed Vulcans.
Right.
Like, the Vulcans always seem like they are just...
a little bit put out by everything.
Yeah, whereas the Romulans are actively angry, yeah. I guess that case, the space battle. Yeah, it was too much. It was too much of a space battle. I feel like I don't want to be too much of a hypocrite because we have commented on how it's tough to relate to a space battle that you're only seeing as someone tells you about stuff happening off screen. But yeah, I think they probably, I know that they went big. It's the season finale, and and I also, I think my other problem with it was I'm not entirely sure if what the outcome of it was. Did they actually take over Cardassia?
I don't think so. They just broke through that little section that they have to go through, I think.
Yeah.
That's a good question, though. I'm not actually sure. I don't believe that's the case, that they've conquered or landed on Cardassia at this point.
Yeah. Because that was another thing I was thinking about is Sisko weighing his decision about is what he did worth the life of Dax, or what, that kind of thing. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, I'm not even really sure what they did.
Which is not good stakes to have for your death, yeah.
Yeah. Other than destroy that, weapons array thing. But did they just go home afterwards? Or because do they say, I think at some point, doesn't he get in Wei-Yun's face or vice versa about Starfleet boots being on the ground in Cardassia?
I think only in the sense of being worried about it, though. I don't think it's actually happened.
Oh, it's not actually happening? Okay.
Because I think those guys are on Cardassia.
Oh, they are?
I think so. I would have to assume, because I think that's like the central command for the Dominion at this point.
Sure. Well, then the question remains. I'm not entirely sure what they gained by it. And honestly, that's would be interesting too if the gain was negligible and it cost him the life of Dax, then was it really the right decision? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I think the point that we're getting at is that it's similar to The Sound of Her Voice in that it doesn't have a strong enough central point. I would argue it does have a better central point than Sound of Her Voice, because it is supposed to be about Sisko making the wrong decision at this point. And, in the grander scheme of things, I guess you can look at this as we've seen a couple episodes leading up to this where Sisko, I at least felt that he was siding too much with the Prophets over Starfleet. And it was like, you're kind of seeing him move in that direction. Here, I think it's interesting, and I think that this episode does a good job of fixing that by Sisko makes the Starfleet decision and it turns out to be wrong, which I think is that you kind of need those episodes to build up why he would move towards the Prophets in any sense. And I think that they got the order a little bit wrong. He started to move and then they pulled it back and he made a bad decision, and now he's going to have to move in that direction again. This is the inciting incident that would make it feel like him moving towards Bajor and away from Starfleet feels like it's the end goal for him at that point. And I think it's good in that sense, and I think it works. I just think that...
Well, you know...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't even know if it's necessarily the quote-unquote wrong decision, because I feel like it's a no-win scenario, because either he doesn't go, and I mean, I guess the Defiant would still go, even if he didn't go, right? So I guess they would
You'd
still
have to assume, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they would still win that battle, because I was going to say, if the Defiant doesn't go, then all of those ships get destroyed. So you lose a bunch of Starfleet lives that way. But if he does go, then Dax dies and the wormhole gets blown up. So it's kind of like a, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I guess if you're assuming, that the Defiant still goes to the battle and they still, you know, O'Brien still manages to figure out what he figures out and they manage to blow that thing up, they still win.
Yes.
But again, this is all predicated on Sisko staying actually making a difference, which it doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Unless Sisko happened to follow Dax to the temple so they could talk, or so, you know, like it's one of those contrived things where it's like, oh, I guess it would make a difference if he just happened to be there at the same time, but there's nothing to imply that is what would happen.
Right. I guess I would think that the difference would be that is what you were saying. Like Sisko goes through with the Starfleet mission, but Dax dies, but their gains are not considerable enough for it to have amounted to the loss of his friend, in his opinion. Mm-hmm. They could have gone that way, because I think the episode is saying that they haven't made a huge amount of gains. They destroyed this little weapons facility that they have to get through, but it's not worth. In his opinion, it wasn't worth the death of her to come through that. And maybe I think the episode's probably a little bit confused, or it doesn't sell that fact hard enough for you, or for anybody, the audience in general. Yeah, I think it's just I think the major problem of the setup coming seemingly out of nowhere is kind of problematic. I like the baby thing that they push a little bit, and it makes sense building off of. It was nice to have retroactively the episode where Dax and Worf take care of the baby. Kiriyoshi was a nice feed into that, and that's our last real episode where they spend any time with each other. And to just move it into this, I don't know. I think the show just could have done a better job of what they were trying to do here. Either strengthen the death of the Jadzia character, or have this kind of thing be more of a ethical dilemma for Sisko. And I think either one of those would have worked out fine for me. But as it stands, it's just an episode where unlike all the other season finales, which felt like they were really designed to move the entire plot in a way, this one feels like it's more designed just to kill off Dax, and by happenstance, some of the plot changes along with it. And that's maybe not fair, but that's how it feels to me, as a structured piece of television, or what they were going for.
Yeah, because even at the end, I was thinking, like, so is the war over now? Like, it was fairly undefined exactly what had happened.
The wormhole closing is surprising, right? Because you'd think that the Pah-wraiths would want the Dominion, which is being held at bay on the other side of the wormhole by the Prophets, they would want them to come through, you would think.
Well, I don't think they care about... closing the wormhole seems to stifle the Prophets, which is all they care about anyway, right?
I think so. Again, it's unclear motivations about what the Pah-wraiths want, because the Pah-wraiths are apparently Prophets too, so you think that they would want to live in the wormhole would be their goal, but I guess not. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Pah-wraith. Awesome.
Let's talk about that.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Maybe this can lead into that. I don't know. I've seen mention that the Prophet stuff plays very heavily in season 7.
Yeah, they lean into this. Yeah.
Is it good? Because I don't know. I'm still not buying this stuff. It doesn't work for me. And when you do something like this, where it's like, oh yeah, blasts her with a laser, and then they close the wormhole, and I don't know. It's just, it's tough for me to really care about plot things that happen in regards to this stuff.
I thought this was the first Prophet-y episode where the presence of the Prophets and this whole Bajoran religion actually made the tone of the show feel different to me.
Yeah.
Because I noticed it most in the Weyoun, Damar, and Dukat scenes where he starts to go with the Pah-Wraith thing and he's explaining this to them. I mentioned it before, but like the Dominion feel bigger than that to me in a Star Trek sense. Like if you're looking at this as a Star Trek episode, the Dominion are an all-encompassing force that Weyoun and Damar just are the heads of. And when they do things, it's with the sense that these characters are acting in a way that will win them battles and that they will be able to take over worlds. When they bring in Dukat, it makes it feel small and personal on a level that feels like it's more of a fantasy storyline than a Star Trek storyline. Yeah. And I don't like the personal nature of it. I'm fine with Dukat staying this way, but I think that the better way to handle it is to have Dukat not align himself with the Dominion in any way. He's kind of like a wild card villain at this point.
Yeah.
And the Dominion maintain their purely political stance and outlook on things. And they kind of do here. They maintain that, but it feels like Dukat influences them in a way that I don't like, and it doesn't feel Star Trek-y.
Yeah, it feels like Dukat should be operating as a third party.
Yeah, a lone wolf who's kind of off on the sides doing things.
Yeah. Because I don't know. If is his thing from now on going to be like Pah-Wraith related?
Yes. I mean, the Pah-Wraiths have a big part of his characterization going forward.
Great.
You can see why people were concerned about the turn of Dukat. I disagree that it's Waltz. It's not Waltz. It's everything that happens from here on out, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think there's a way you could do that and still have it work. I don't know. It's tough for me to get excited about that because I've just, as I said, I've never really been on board with the whole Prophets thing.
Well, here's my problem with it. One of my favorite video games is a game called Suikoden 2, which is a role-playing game. But just as a quick breakdown, what happens in that is that two friends get these two magical stones. They each get one. That the stones are fated to cause them to go to war with each other, right? Mm-hmm. So the stone, by the end of the game, these characters have gone to war with each other. But you can't tell if getting the stones is what did it, or if their natural evolution as characters, as people, is just did that, and it happens that they also got the stones, and the stones are just a thematic representation of this.
Right.
I feel that's what you should do with the Pah-Wraiths and the Prophets. They shouldn't be characters, but instead are kind of like, even if they're a power source, it just ties in thematically to the drive of the characters who get them in a way.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're possessed by a demon that comes in and does it. I would be much more like Dukat wanting this all-powerful evil energy perfectly works for the character of Dukat at this point, right?
Right.
Him getting red eyes and shooting fireballs out of his ass does not work in a Star Trek sense. And I think that's the problem. They're too much of an alien characterization instead of just a theme that you can work off and power up characters by giving them these abilities. Yeah.
And I on the flip side of that too, I was kind of hoping, that the closing of the wormhole was going to mean that they were just like, all right, we're just taking the Prophets off the board now. And I would be interested to see how that affects the Bajorans and everybody else who rely on the Prophets moving into the last season. Like, what does closing the wormhole mean to Deep Space Nine? What does the Prophets being dead or something mean to the Bajoran people and their society? And does, blah, 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 blah.
It's semi-good news for Starfleet, right? Because the Dominion aren't coming through.
Sure. You would think that, I mean, large, looking at the big picture, that's a win for them, I mean, even the admiral there, who seems to be the only admiral who's not secretly a bad guy, knock on wood. I don't know if he does something atrocious in the next season, but even he is like just kind of putting up with the whole Prophet shit. So if anything, if he heard that happened, he'd be like, oh, good. I guess Ben doesn't have to worry about that anymore. On top of he can now focus on his job, on top of the fact that the Dominion does not have a shortcut to get to us anymore.
Right. Yeah. No, I'd 100% agree. There's still the they do the groundwork of saying like the Dominion can still make Jem'Hadar at a rate that's pretty impressive, but I do feel that Starfleet would consider this to be a net positive to not have them knocking on the door anymore and not be worried about it. The wormhole's not destroyed, I guess. They've never said this, so there is the sense that it could open again. I think they say in the episode that the prophets have just kind of shut the door. Basically, like the prophets aren't dead or anything, but they've just decided to close the door to the temple or whatever.
Now, here's a question.
Yeah.
Do you think they made the wrong choice story-wise there? Do you think what should have happened was that basically the wormhole just got forced open and it's just open all the time?
I think it's more interesting. Well, I don't know. I think that the wormhole has to close to allow Sisko to leave DS9. Like, he would stay there if it was stayed open.
Sure.
However, I think the stakes become worse if the wormhole is just kept open and the prophets can't do anything about it. So the Dominion can come through the wormhole. At that point, that feels... We've kind of complained about the repetitious nature of the season finales of DS9, where it always feels like the Dominion are about to come through the wormhole, and then they stop them somehow.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would become more repetitious that way, but I don't know. If the series was written better from the start, and Sisko losing contact with the prophets here meant a little bit more than I feel it actually does mean, this is a better way to go about it. I just don't know if they ever made that connection.
Do they ever have Sisko like verbalize that the wormhole closing is a good thing? So he's kind of conflicted about that?
I'm not sure. I don't remember if they do or don't get that specific with it. It's more just kept as like a general loss of faith idea that he's unsure about what to do with his life at this point.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about this one with? I mean, I'm sad that Dax is gone. I wish he had stuck around for a little bit. It's always funny to me that the actors and actresses, after they're off the shows, are always, 10 years down the line, are like, DS9 is the best thing, or Star Trek is the best thing that I ever did. And I know that a lot of that is convention money speaking and stuff like that. But it is a strange, like, as you mentioned last time, she left for Becker, and no one remembers Becker. You left this other show. It's just a showbiz decision that I guess you can't really hold against her. But I personally would have preferred if Jadzia Dax had remained on the show for the last season. Yeah,
it's one of those things where, like, you hear stuff like that all the time when especially with guest stars and stuff. Like, I don't know why I was specifically thinking of Jeffrey Combs, because this didn't happen to him, but I feel like he would be the perfect one for this to happen to, where he's on the show enough that he's important to the show, but that's not for him, the actor. That's not like a solid gig.
Right.
So if something came along and it's like, Jeffrey, we want you to be a main player on this new series with an established star that's going to have some heat behind it, 100% he's going to take that job. And then all of a sudden you don't have Wei Yun anymore.
Right.
So, and so like that stuff just happens, I mean, I don't know if, do you know how much of it was just, she didn't want to do the show anymore?
I think it was money related. I think that she has the weakest negotiating position out of all the actors, I believe, mostly because you can just kill off Dax.
Sure.
Dax is built as a character who's you're arguing your case for sticking around is poorly designed against how this character is designed to work. So the production team, if they did want to not pay you that much, are able to get rid of you. So you're in kind of a tough situation where someone like Avery Brooks, they can't easily get rid of him in this series.
Right.
So I know that her position negotiating wise was weak, and she wanted to do something else, I think, at that point, and was, there seems to be bad blood because she is not in the series after this, even the finale.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I assumed that she would show up like via one of those newly filmed flashbacks or something like that. That's interesting.
I have not looked this up. I'm fairly certain that she's not even in the finale. And I believe the finale has a montage sequence, kind of.
Oh, wow.
So
not even like archival footage.
I don't think so.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we'll see. I might be, let me know if I'm wrong about that, but I'm fairly certain
even
that's
Tasha
correct.
showed up in the finale of Star Trek TNG.
They just put Tasha Yar in the finale of DS9 as the ultimate spiteful thing.
I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I think we're done. Let's take a break then. We'll play an audio clip. We'll come back, read some Patron thoughts, and give our final thoughts, and then wrap up Season 6 of DS9.
The funeral service is due to begin in a few minutes, Jadzia. But I need to talk to you one last time. When I first met you, you told me that my relationship with Jadzia Dax wouldn't be any different than the one I had with Curzon Dax. Things didn't work out that way. I had a hell of a lot of fun with both of you. But Curzon was my mentor. You were my friend, and I am going to miss you.
All right, everybody, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed the content today, patreon.com/the Pensky File is the place to go. You can support the show there. A couple dollars a month gets you extra stuff, extra podcasts. And also, if you're a Captain Tier supporter over at patreon.com/the Pensky File, you get a shout out. Special thanks go to Andrew Sherlock, Ben Douglas, Captain Quark, Cardinal Doomsday, Christian Pouch, David K., Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Yarpy, Joint Mango, Kevin Reyes, Kyle Barrett, Matt Cutler, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Russell Elledge, Samuel Custer, Grim Santo, Sean Spinobi, Tark Latif, a Vault 13 Hero, and Will Yates. Thank you very much for supporting the show. Much appreciated. And now patron thoughts. There's only a couple of them for the Tears of the Prophets, the finale. So let's get to these. If you're a patron, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we read them on the show. First comment, Poindexter G. Something I noticed in a previous watch-through, this is the first time that we've seen Wei-Yun in quite a while. Yes, he's been on the show, but his last 4 appearances are as holographic forgeries, hallucinations, and prophet-driven fever dreams, which is a nice collection of words right there, actually. Samuel S. says, finally a decent episode. It's a shame Dax got killed off right as she was starting to get interesting. I do appreciate the fact that it was Gul Dukat who kills her, though. It gives him another layer of evil after 6 seasons of people telling us he is evil. We see him kill Dax simply because she was an inconvenience to him who happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. The space combat was well shot and the action was easy to see. Sisko's pain is palpable in the last scene with Dax's coffin, and the scene really drives home how overwhelmed he is when he admits he doesn't know what to do now. All in all, the season ends on a good episode of 4 out of 5. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say I have to say I think that Dukat killing Dax would have had a lot more weight if he had done it in a more pedestrian manner, like by shooting her or stabbing her or something.
Like how they all went out. Yeah.
Yeah, just because, Dukat's awfulness is very grounded generally, or at least had been up to this point. So him just blasting her with, a visual effect doesn't really feel very personal,
And his pre-Pah-Wraith, he seems more frightening to me just because he's more sadistic like that. Like he's a disturbed individual who's doing this. And it would seem like he'd be the kind of guy who would go for the knife because the knife is personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they get rid of that with the whole Pah-Wraith thing. I'll take this moment just to stress that the Dax being gone, I do think that this episode is mostly a failure in how to get rid of a character, and I kind of feel really underwhelmed for after 6 seasons that this is how you get rid of one of the main cast members, even down to I'm always struck by, Dax has just died, and the scene after she dies in the coffin scene is Sisko leaving, and he's saying goodbye to everyone in Ops, and then Kira and Odo are kind of hanging out in his office. I always feel like those characters, because you have a scene like that, you never get a sense that those characters are really grieving about what's happened here. And
yeah.
I feel that if you're going to kill a main character off like this, you kind of have to have a scene where everyone commiserates about them. Like in not that it's a great example, but Nemesis, when Data dies, the last scene of the movie is them toasting Data.
Sure.
And even if it's not what you'd want to see from something like Nemesis, I'd like to think that the people just don't go back to their jobs and are kind of like, well, let's see what happens tomorrow on another episode of Star Trek DS9. I feel you have to do a montage. You have to have the characters talk about Dax. They have to recount previous episodes where they had an interaction with Dax and something Dax did.
You have to have a little hologram
that pops up.
Dax, giving her, telling everyone what she thinks of them.
Do you agree, or are you happy with the way that this was? I really think that if you're going to kill a character off, even if the acting thing is behind the scenes, it's kind of like a difficult situation. You have to do the character right, and I don't think that this episode did. It almost feels like they were just happy to get rid of her. They did it as quickly as possible in the most efficient way possible, and now it's just on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think it's tough because this episode has a lot of stuff happening in it. Like I checked at about the 20-25 minute mark to see how I thought maybe it was like an extra long episode or something, because they were doing a lot of stuff. They were setting up a lot of stuff, and I wasn't sure how it was all going to shake out in the next 20 minutes. So I think the scene with Sisko probably is the shorthand for what you're talking about. Because if they gave another 5 minutes to going around and showing everybody, doing the Discovery thing where everybody gets a scene where they write a letter to their parents or some shit. I feel like in that case, it's going to feel a little bit overblown and a little too melodramatic.
Does it though? But I don't care about the space battle outcome. So to me, the Dax death is the only thing that matters. And I like the Sisko thing because I like the final shot of him leaving and stuff like that. I like his scene with the coffin. But if the outcome of the space battle is so uninteresting and unemotional to me, you have to pay attention to Dax, I think.
Yeah, fair. I think it's just how you handle it. I don't know if you necessarily needed to add many other scenes. I think you just needed to have the cast show a little more emotion about it. Because even in that scene with Odo and Kira, yeah, they're just sort of there, and they're just sort of like, well, he might not come back. Like it's already over at that point,
Right? Yeah.
I think what might have been effective. Maybe it would have been really silly. I don't know. In that scene with Odo and Kira, Odo should have just broken down and started crying. Because I don't think Kira would do that. I think Kira has seen enough of that shit that she can keep it together. But I think if you had someone like Odo just completely lose it, then that's sort of like does the work of everybody else having to do a scene like that, because he is the most stoic and emotionally repressed of everybody.
Yeah, and I think it actually fits into his recent characterization as softening as a character.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I could see that. Yeah, him being the one to actually show the sorrow of everyone. But I agree that I think the cast has to play it more somber than they actually do. And like you were just saying that you thought too much time with the cast would have been melodramatic. I think the opposite is actually true. I think that the melodramatic version is the Tasha Yar one, where it's a character you've only seen for like 10 episodes, and then everyone's like sobbing at her funeral. And while that makes sense in the universe, as a viewer of the show, you're like, come on, guys, like this show just started. Like, how am I supposed to feel attached to this character?
No, but imagine that episode was in season 7 or season 6 of TNG. Do you think it makes it any better? Because I don't. I think comes off
the scene with Tasha.
Yeah, I think it still comes off pretty melodramatically.
I wonder. I would have liked to. I wouldn't have wanted to see a direct copy, like literally a hologram on DS9, but I would have liked to have had a group funeral scene, I think.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's put it this way.
Like Spock, when Spock dies in the movies, like that's an appropriate. All the characters are there, and you get a sense that everyone is mourning this.
Sure. I think that they could have done some trimming at the beginning to make room for some of this stuff, because I don't think you needed Vic Fontaine in this. I don't think you needed.
I forgot he's in.
I don't think you needed Quark and Bashir commiserating over the fact that this stupid thing that they've added to both of their, or that came out of nowhere on Quark, but Bashir hasn't even thought about in 4 seasons. That all of a sudden comes up because they're trying to have a baby. You know, like, and I know it's all part of the thing where it's like
they're trying to say goodbye to Dax. You know, it's just not the way that I want to see it.
It's the thing that The Walking Dead turned into like a fucking joke, which is you can tell what character is dying based on which character who usually doesn't have a lot of lines or focus gets the most focus.
Right.
So if the old guy who's been there since the first episode but only has like a couple lines a season suddenly does something heroic or has like a big monologue, that dude is dead by the end of the episode.
Right.
And that's kind of what they do here, where it's like the focus becomes on her. Oh, they're having a baby. Oh, isn't that great? They're so happy. Oh, shit. Oh, it looks like it's going to work. You know, they're really building it up. So to maximize the,
looks like I can give you the hormones that'll let you get a baby.
Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah. It's a I don't want to say it's an artificial way to wrench emotion out of a character death, but it kind of is, because it's not like, again, the scene where she dies is just so dumb. There's no meaning to it. There's no weight to it at the time. It's the height of her happiness. She gets blasted with some red goop and she dies.
Yeah.
As opposed to if it was, the height of her happiness and all of a sudden, fuck, she's the only one who can stand in the way of Dukat getting to X, Y, and Z. And, they get in a fight and he stabs her in the neck or something,
Yeah.
Or something like that. I think you got to spend time with the characters beforehand, but not make it feel cheap. And on the other hand, and then afterhand, is that a word? I've never thought about that. What's the opposite of beforehand? Is it afterward? I guess
it's just afterwards. Yeah, but you think there would be an afterhand? Yeah.
Afterhand. Yeah. And afterhand, I could see the necessity to spend some more time with the grieving characters, but I think there's too much going on. They just don't have room for it.
Yeah, and they do grieve next season. I'm only talking about this episode. I know people are going to chime in and say like a lot of the storylines in the 7th season. A lot of the new Dax character has storylines that deal with the fact that it's a new Dax, obviously. And what that means to like letting go of Jadzia and things like that.
Yeah.
So they will touch on it. I just kind of need it in this episode. But you reminded me that in terms of like setting up Dax as a character who's going to die, there was a review I was reading that reminded me. And you remember the original Hot Shots, the parody movie by the Abrams guys? There's like a fighter pilot character in that who has a mission to fly, and he's like supposed to sign life insurance paperwork, but he's like, I'll do it after the mission is over. And then he walks like under a ladder and a black cat walks in front of him as he's going off to his mission. And then of course he dies. So it's like, that they're just making a parody of the fact that you always know which character is going to be dead because of the way that the show builds towards that.
Yeah. Or in any war movie, it's the one who pulls out the picture of his girl back home that he can't wait to see again. He's going to get a bullet in the head by the end of that scene,
All right, next comment is... Oops, what happened there? Norman Buckwald says, Dukat! I suspect Dax may consider Tarius had a much more dignified death, the shuttle accident. It may have been nice to throw a line indirectly somewhere as to why Jadzia was not on the mission, which was because she and Worf would be separated after change of heart. That's a good point. I think that dramatic irony would have been poignant and made this episode much more meaningful. Also, I'm sorry, but I could see the Dominion arresting Dukat and not giving him free range to go forward with his plan. I suspect the founder leader would have considered this Weyun defective for not arresting Dukat and maybe even executing him. Maybe instead of Dukat states all of his plans remotely from an undisclosed location to the two, as he did with Kira earlier in the season. And if Jadzia had to die, I would have added the drama and had her be already pregnant, and perhaps due to the unique treatment she's needed. That's why Bashir also had to stay behind, unless Bashir was banished from a key Defiant mission due to his insubordination in Waltz. As for the ending, instead of having Sisko at the restaurant, just have Kira mention he took his baseball with him and show an empty desk. That was enough and most simply would harken back to the end of Season 5 when he does indeed leave his baseball behind.
I disagree with that because I'm really glad they said something because I didn't even notice that until she brought it up.
That the baseball was gone?
Yes.
I think he's talking about don't show him peeling potatoes or whatever. He's doing
I thought he was saying don't have her say that the baseball's gone.
No, he's talking about the denouement, which is him on Earth peeling potatoes or cleaning clams or whatever he's doing.
Oh, okay.
I like the baseball thing. I think that's nice, and I agree with you. You probably wouldn't have noticed it unless the camera just really literally hung on the empty baseball thing. But even then, you wouldn't probably make the connection that the whole reason the last season worked is because he left his baseball there knowing he'd come back for it.
Right.
Let's see here. There was some other thing I wanted to say about that. No, not really. If she's already pregnant, I think she's already pregnant. That's too dark. I think like this, it's Star Trek, and she shouldn't.
It's not the Red Wedding here.
Zim Nuclear Wessel says, headcanon, they gave Dukat his bird of prey back, and that's how we got close enough to DS9 to beam into the temple. Yeah, but it's the wrong transporter thing. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure it's a Dominion transporter effect that they use on him. Matthew Ross says, Tears of the Prophets, now we can return to the Dominion War. Remember that. And this episode has it all. Scheming Weyun, Damar, and the newly insanely calm Dukat. Hint, he's too calm, hence extra crazy. We've seen empowered alliance or reluctant allies bickering on their system hopping plans. spaceships shooting and blowing stuff up, and a surprising exit death of Pharrell's Jadzia. I actually was taken aback when she died originally, as I feel her character was getting better after getting married to Worf, and I think the acting around her death was up to now missing Klingon death cry and sadness of Worf was touching. Sisko's belief in his failure as a Starfleet officer is bizarre. Didn't they just win? Sisko's sadness at the death of Jadzia was a bit hammy for me, but the sentiment was there. Just to reiterate a past point in this podcast and even DS9, the prophets are asses. At least the Pah-wraiths talk straight. Can the prophets just say what they want? How is Sisko to know anything? Again, they cut him off of the space peanuts, and the wormhole is an inadvertent coup for the good guys, maybe. Sisko's belief he was a total failure and a rush to clean clams seems a bad omen at this point for the character, and a shock to Bajor that something is amiss seems genuine. A good apology for the last set of episodes, making you hungry to see how this resolves in the final season.
I was annoyed by that prophet scene too, where it's like, you guys got to give me something here, man. You can't say no, don't. It's like, what? Don't what? I got a job to do. If you want me to stay, you got to give me a reason and not just, talk through a Martok at me.
Yeah. I mean, as Matt says, the problem is the Pah-wraiths speak clearly about what they want.
The Pah-wraiths are very direct.
Yeah, they're like, I'm going to shoot you with my fireballs now, and you say, yes. Okay. It's true. It's just, we've complained about that forever. Like, it's fine to do 1 or 2 seasons of the prophets talking like that, because you're like, oh, it's mysterious. Like, what are we building to? But now we're in season 6. Just have the prophets explain what the fuck is going on, and that'll be fine with everybody.
Or, I mean, you don't even have to have them explain it. Just have, so that we know in the moment, but have Sisko understand it, Like when he comes out of the thing, he's like, oh, the prophets told me.
He's getting better at understanding them, yeah.
Yeah, the prophets told me not to eat that food that's in the fridge because it's old or something.
The prophets told me, Jake, it's your turn to do the laundry again. Captain Quark with the final comment. Tears of the Prophets. This is a pretty good season cliffhanger. I enjoyed most of the story that involved the fight against the Dominion. I also enjoyed Sisko's internal conflict over whether or not he should go on his mission or obey the will of the Prophets. The conversation between Admiral Ross and he is especially compelling in that regard. Although I don't really understand how his presence on DS9 would have made a difference as to what happened to Dax in the wormhole. Dax's death was definitely better than Yar's from TNG, since we feel greater tragedy having known the character for longer. Plus, it's a visceral high point in Dukat's villainy. I didn't care for Terry Farrell's performance as Dax when I first began watching the show, but she's really grown on me throughout the seasons, and she will be missed. Thank you, patrons.
Yeah, I would agree with that last bit, because, I didn't think she was anything special at the beginning, but I think she managed to figure it out, or maybe they all kind of figured out that character together, and the last season or two, I thought she's been really good.
Yeah, she is, the first couple
also
seasons, if they had pulled the
cliffhanger.
same stunt and replaced the actor with another Dax, it would have been like, okay, makes sense to me. But she's now part of the family, I feel like, and it's just a strange decision. Like, I don't feel that attachment to Yar because it's just the first season and the show is terrible. Like, they never had a legitimately good relationship or character interaction with her. So I don't feel that importance. But here I do feel... I guess my thesis statement on it is, if you're going to kill this character off, I need it to be a better episode than this at this point. I'm fine with Yar's death being stupid, because it's like, who cares? The show is stupid at that point. Fuck you. But DS9, the show feels like it's better than that. And just, the character's been there for 6 years. I feel that she deserves a better send-off than what she actually got.
Yeah. Would you consider this a cliffhanger? Because I do not.
I do not consider it a cliffhanger, no. In contrast to the other season enders, which are cliffhangers in a lot of ways. What would they be? Maybe not. TNG probably did more cliffhangery endings. I think DS9 likes to end its seasons fairly cleanly and then move into the next season. So I would guess that DS9 doesn't do a lot of cliffhangers.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you, patrons, for supporting the show. Thank you for listening. Clay, final rating of the season for this one. Season 6 is over. What do you think?
I'm going to give this a 2.
Okay.
Because I think it
Pretty
leaves
sure
a lot
this
to
is
be...
your lowest rated season finale. You've given pretty high ratings to all the season finales to this point, which is interesting.
I'm going to go with a 2 because I feel like they don't really do Dax with the exception of like the last couple scenes that I thought were really good. I don't think they do her justice as far as a send off. I don't think that. I think she gets killed in a really stupid way. I think the central, like I've said, the central thing with Sisko doesn't make any sense because him being there wouldn't have stopped anything. I think they waste a lot of time that they could have spent doing more constructive stuff instead of having Vic Fontaine serenade Bashir.
Baby, maybe the losers.
Yeah.
Get lucky sometime.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's good stuff in it, but I think the wasted potential outweighs the good stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah. To me, it's a episode with a lot of flaws, and that's a 2 for me. It's not a catastrophic failure, but it's like, what's going on here? Why isn't this a better episode? And that is a 2 for me. So 2s for both of us to wrap it out. The second half of season 6 didn't really end on a high note, but Clay, we're going to do a wrap-up. I'm doing a wrap-up video. You're on vacation next week, so we'll kill a little bit of time. I'll do a solo wrap-up of my season 6 thoughts. Do you, as the new person of the season, do you want to just give what's your quick gut take on season 6 at this point? To remind you, we've talked about how it's a high and low season. There are some really good highs and some really low lows, but I don't know if you remember anything outside of that. If you want to talk about how the occupation arc sat with you,
sure,
all the way through the middle, and now this weakness at the end, and anything that you remember would be interesting that people would want to hear about.
My main takeaway is I'm surprised that for a show that started its season feeling like they've really figured out a direction, that it really didn't live up to that. They came out of the gate strong with the occupation arc, and it really seemed like that it was going to be, all right, this is the Dominion War. We're going to do things, serialize things. We're really going to get into it, really hash out the dark corners of what the Star Trek universe is and could be. But they still have too much of a foot in the old style of storytelling, and that plus I don't know how much behind the scenes stuff was influencing these episodes or whatnot. When you're pulling an episode that out of the trash can from season 1 to do in season 6, it doesn't really give me a lot of faith in what's going on.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like it started off with a lot of potential, but it never really lived up to it. It had some really great ones, but I think the thing that surprised me was it felt kind of directionless ultimately, given how strongly it seemed to have a vision for what they were going to do.
Yeah, it is interesting. It was a really strong start to the season, right? It was, it really amounted to, it felt totally different. It felt like the show had like refreshed itself in a way. Mm-hmm, and it's been the past 6 episodes that have not been great outside of that. But your highest episodes were Rocks and Shoals, Waltz, Far Beyond the Stars, Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night, and then The Pale Moonlight. Do any of those stick out to you as you would say that was the best episode of the season?
I feel like it's probably a toss-up between Rocks and Shoals and Pale Moonlight.
Okay. Your weakest ones were Resurrection, The Reckoning, Prophet and Lace, and Time's Orphan. Which one would you say were you blown away by its awfulness?
Could you give me a quick refresher of what those first 2 were about?
Resurrection was Vedic Bareil from the Mirror Universe. Yeah. The Reckoning was Jake, Sisko, and Kira blasting each other with Prophet energy.
Oh, Jesus.
Prophet and Lace is the female Ferengi episode, and Time's Orphan is Molly O'Brien.
Yep. My instinct says Resurrection, but I feel like Time's Orb fan is a close second, and Prophet and Lace is obviously terrible, but Time's Orphan it was just a mess.
Yeah,
it's so out of place. And all of those episodes were terrible. Resurrection, I completely forgot about that.
I think that's what makes Resurrection the worst for me, is that it's barely remember. Like, I don't remember what happened in that besides the fact that he came back, and I think that's all that really happened. And
is he like was he a clone or something?
No, he's just the Mirror Universe. Mirror Universe Bareil came back, and he was like hanging out with Kira for a little bit, and then he leaves at the end.
No, that's it. That's the worst one. That was the worst one.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's Prophet and Lace gets a lot of flack, but I think that episode has like legitimately no conflict in it. It's just he's just hanging out and then he leaves again at the end. It's very, very strange. All right, I think that's it. Great. So that's your ratings. I think this will be interesting. I'll run the numbers and I'll do my own personal podcast on the wrap up of it. But it's good to have your final thoughts about it, Clay. And I think that's it. Thank you guys for listening. You can check out all the social media links: Facebook, Twitter, Discord, Patreon.com/The Pensky File. And I think that's it. We're done with season 6, so you can look forward to the wrap up video. Season 7 starts, and then we are in the final season of Deep Space Nine. It's been a wild, wild 2 years, and we're almost at the finish line. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, I was going to say, for season 7, should I run my voice through a vocoder or something so it seems like I'm a different character?
That'd be a good idea. Yeah. I'll start calling you something else Dax, I suppose, or I'll switch up your name a little bit. I wish, and I'll talk about, I wish original Clay was here, like in season 6 when we had that great episode. This is not working out the same. Esri is the name of the new Dax, just for your information.
I have to admit, I did look ahead a little bit because I wanted to see what she was like. And can you give me a quick rundown on how people feel about her?
They don't feel negative towards her.
Yeah.
I think she's a character that you don't really get to know very well because she's only in one season of the show.
Sure.
But I think that she's regarded as likable, and I guess the main thing that stands out, the main thing that I would take away is that she doesn't have a lot of haters against her. So it's kind of just, it's a character that maybe had a little bit more potential, but they never really managed to do anything with it. And people like the performance. People generally like the way that she goes in terms of story and stuff like that. So I would say it's a mildly positive reception towards her.
The reason I ask is because I watched the first scene with her from the second episode and
of the 7th season.
Yeah.
Yep. And
she kind of feels like a proto Tilly to me. At least based on that one scene. And I was curious.
She's like a younger Dax. So that's kind of her characterization, is that she's youthful.
And she had kind of the fast talking thing that Tilly does, and she was kind of self-deprecating the way Tilly is. And so that's why I was curious how people felt about her, because I know that there are a lot of people who do not like Tilly on Discovery. And I feel like if this character was a favorite for people, but that one is not, I wonder what the disconnect is.
I would just say she's not as bad. She's not as inserted as Tilly feels. Into things. That would be the difference. I don't mind Esri, but we'll talk to her. We'll talk about her when we get to her, which will be in very short time. So, Clay, have a good vacation, and the podcast will catch up with you when you return. And I think that's
I'll send some very trolly pictures of myself at the Star Wars section of Magic Kingdom or MGM Studios or whatever.
Guys, thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate it. Hopefully that you enjoyed the 6th season of DS9 and our coverage of it. We're moving on to season 7. We'll see you in a couple days. Later.